Remember, lads, subscribe to PewDiePie.
All right, look, we all know subscribe to PewDiePie is a fucking meme. We all get that. We all know that. Anyone under the age of being a fucking boomer realizes that, right? So when a gunman, before opening fire up on a bunch of unarmed civvies, says this and then states a bunch of other memes about Fortnite and playing memes in his car, etc., says this, we understand that one of the main purposes of doing this is for the pure shock value and to get attention. He is an attention whore. That is why he is doing everything in the first place. That is why he's memeing even while in custody. That is why he's memeing in his manifesto. That is why he was memeing during horrendous actions that should be disavowed and condemned by everyone. Subscribe to PewDiePie was almost never about PewDiePie. It was about an individual versus a corporation on a platform that has largely abandoned the individual component, the people who make them what they are, to cater to corporations and giant entities as such. It would have been the same thing if it was Smosh at the top still. It would have been subscribe to Smosh. This term no longer belongs to PewDiePie, it belongs to the internet. It is the story of David and Goliath. PewDiePie is whoever you believe to be disenfranchised, belittled, and small up against uncalculable odds of another larger entity. If you believe that to be African Americans versus systemic racism, it's subscribe to PewDiePie. If you believe that is white Christian males against a society that no longer values them or sees them as lesser, it is subscribe to PewDiePie. And if you see that as the white race versus various other races, it is subscribe to PewDiePie. PewDiePie is another shit poster on the internet, another YouTube attention whore, as we all are, who made edgy jokes for the shock value because he knew it would get views. At the end of the day, his jokes aren't ironic, because that's not how irony works, but they are still just jokes. His death to all of expletive group is not serious. In fact, the fact that it got through was one of the things that surprises him. He made a conscious decision to include that in the video because it was shocking and because it would generate clicks. Not because he wanted to instill this hatred of certain groups or people or individuals, but because it was entertaining and because he saw it as comedy. Now, will certain groups and individuals who unironically believe certain things latch onto that hatred and promote it as him being with them? Absolutely. But once you put something on the internet, you no longer control it. You don't get to decide what is a meme. The internet tells you what is a meme. Subscribe to PewDiePie has been so controversial since this shooting that multiple articles have been written about it, more so than the gunmen and the victims themselves. When you're using a tragedy to attack someone who is white and male for being white and male, and for, by virtue of that alone, being racist, all you're doing is playing it into the shooter's hands. This is exactly what he wanted. He wants the right to be more disenfranchised, to push them to more extremes, and they want them to be depersoned, because when you're depersoned, you feel like you have less and less to lose and only more and more to gain by certain actions. And that's exactly what the media is doing. But I'm not naive enough to think that the media is retarded. I don't know why they're playing into his hands, but they certainly know that they are. PewDiePie has faced enormous backlash because of this, because of a one-off meme. However, Facebook themselves don't seem to be hit as hard, despite being the source for a numerous amount of live-streamed attacks. Fortnite and Spyro, which are mentioned all throughout his manifesto, are not even being hit at all. In fact, I have yet to see a single article focus on that. Even Owens wasn't really in the spotlight besides her comment about being put in the manifesto. So why is PewDiePie being targeted so much? Why would someone who was simply being mentioned, a meme amongst a sea of memes during a horrendous action, be this thing that the media latches onto? Because it's much easier if you have a defined target. PewDiePie is a scapegoat. PewDiePie represents the young man's gateway drug into extremist behavior. PewDiePie is no longer person. PewDiePie is an allegory for a type of new age, middle class, white person. That is what they view him as. They view him as a slate, a template. He is a, by all accounts, average intelligence, white skinned, blue eyes and blonde haired individual who dabbles in the extremist side of comedy, in which he takes absurdism to its natural course when mixed with the internet. He's a watered down, accessible Sam Hyde with a huge audience. People are afraid of not of what he says and does, but of what it leads others to find. If PewDiePie makes a joke about a certain group of people or individuals, people are afraid of them then thinking those types of jokes are okay, finding various other commentators who think those jokes are okay, and then slowly spiraling until they end up at a church with an AR-15 in hand, reminding people to subscribe to PewDiePie. It's the same thing that they did with weed. They said weed was a gateway drug, and eventually the person will spiral into using black tar heroin. Anytime we've seen people say and mention gateway substances, gateway videos, gateway music, etc., we find that it's never nearly as extreme as the opposition wants you to believe. Is PewDiePie's jokes problematic in current year? No, I don't think so. As an African American person, or at least a person of color, I don't find a lot of the race-based humor upsetting. It seems like it's very obvious to tell actual white nationalists or ethno-state advocates from those who are shitposting. Media 100% can influence people, by the way. And I think that's something that everyone should admit. On some level, media will influence you, because no matter what you do, you are influenced and you are changed based upon what you consume. Do violent video games make you into a violent person? No. In fact, it could be a relief, but being a relief still influences your actions and your mindset. It doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, or no matter how slight or significant, media does influence you. It's hard for us to see how it influences you. And I guess that is also a reason why PewDiePie is seen as dangerous to the media. What is the repercussions? And they immediately jump to the worst possible scenarios. Is this gunman really radicalized by watching a PewDiePie video? No, in fact, I bet this gunman has very rarely, if ever, engaged in watching a PewDiePie video. Most of the memes that you'll find the media touting around that are from his pages were posted all on the same day, specifically so that they would tout it around. Racism is real. Sexism is real. Bigotry is 100% real. And it happens in all kinds of forms, and there's so many people who engage in that unironically. And those people are despicable. Do I think their ideas and their ideologies need to be censored from the internet to protect young minds? Of course not, because the best way to make a kid do something is to tell them not to do it and tell them that it's bad for them. If you're going to tell them that, then their rebellious side is immediately going to kick in to find what you don't want them to do. And that's a good thing, because it keeps societies moving. What the last generation was afraid of, the next generation will conquer, for better or for worse. If you're looking for me for a fix for this situation, I obviously have no idea what to do. I don't know what the fix is. Obviously, there are plenty of extremists. Are they being radicalized by PewDiePie subconsciously? I don't think so. But I'm also not a psychologist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a biochemist. I can't tell you the makeup of these shooters. But I can say that to take it to this extreme, to say that PewDiePie's jokes from months, almost a year or two ago, are what is causing a mass shooting is preposterous. Anytime we hear about these gateway drugs, these gateway philosophies, the outcome is always far more extreme than reality. So yeah, was this term co-opted by undesirable people? 100%. We don't control that though. The internet is not to be controlled. At the end of the day, the actions of this shooter are no one's fault but his own. And banning guns, banning knives, banning whatever will not stop extremists from committing extremist actions. I don't know how to solve the issue. I don't know what to do. But I do know, instead of focusing on whether or not PewDiePie is a gateway drug, whether or not PewDiePie is racist, whether or not PewDiePie is significant, relevant, or important in any factor, we need to actually focus on the real things that do matter. Getting the guns out of the hands of people who would misuse them, not impeaching on the civil rights or liberties of others, and stopping the next attack. How to do that? Well, I leave that up to our elected officials and people far smarter than me. But I do know subscribe to PewDiePie isn't bad. It is a tool, it is a phrase, it is an ideology, and with everything, it can be misused. That doesn't make it anyone's fault, but the people who do misuse it. So, as always guys, I've been Faith or Moliminous, and I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. And remember lads, subscribe to PewDiePie.